He made us laugh for decades, but what if we told you the real story behind Steve Harvey isn't just about comedy, it's about survival? Before the $1 Million Suits, the hit TV shows, and those unforgettable Family Feud moments, he was broke, homeless, and sleeping in his car. But that's just the beginning. From getting banned by a church over a single joke, to walking away from stand-up at the height of his fame, to a live mistake that nearly ended his career overnight, this is the raw, unfiltered journey of a man who risked it all, failed hard, rose again, and built a quiet empire while everyone was watching the punchlines. And just when you think you've heard it all, a viral guest walks on stage and says one sentence that made Steve Harvey freeze, break down, and walk off in tears. This isn't just a biography, it's Steve Harvey like you've never seen him before. Stay until the end. Trust us, you won't believe how it ends. Born broke in West Virginia, the toughest years Steve Harvey never talks about. Born in Welch, West Virginia on January 17, 1957, Broderick Stephen Harvey came into the world under conditions most would call unforgiving. Welch was a small coal mining town, already in economic decline when Steve was growing up. His father, Jesse Harvey, worked as a coal miner, and his mother, Eloise, was a Sunday school teacher. They lived modestly, relying on faith, resilience, and the kind of grit only a working-class black family in the segregated South could know. Steve had a stutter as a child, so severe he couldn't say his own name. He was often teased, which made him retreat into humor as a shield. What's rarely talked about is how deeply poverty shaped him. No hot water in winter, shoes patched with cardboard, and dreams that felt light years away. Still, he idolized heroes like Muhammad Ali and dreamed of being on television, even telling his teacher once, who laughed. Years later, he'd send her a TV, not out of spite, but as a punchline only life could write. When young Steve slept in his car and still showed up for comedy nights. Long before he was a household name, Steve Harvey was literally living out of his 1976 Ford Tempo. After quitting his job as an insurance salesman to pursue stand-up full-time, gigs were inconsistent and rarely paid enough to cover hotel rooms or meals. In the early 1990s, he was homeless for 3 years, often sleeping in his car at rest stops or behind venues, sometimes bathing in hotel bathrooms or gas station sinks. He only ate when a comedy club offered food or when he could stretch a few dollars. Still, he never missed a show. He once drove hours just to perform for 10 minutes, then slept in the parking lot afterward. He kept a small cooler with bologna, crackers, and water in the back seat. What kept him going? A phone call from the Apollo Theater inviting him to host changed everything. But he never forgot those nights in his car. In fact, he says they made him funny and made him fearless too. Hunger sharpens ambition. He was a carpet cleaner, then he grabbed the mic at an open mic night. Before the bright lights and the tailored suits, Steve Harvey was scrubbing floors and hauling vacuum hoses as a carpet cleaner in Cleveland. He took the job to support his young family, juggling that alongside gigs like mail sorting and even boxing to make ends meet. One night in 1985, on a dare from a coworker, he stepped into a local comedy club stage during open mic. Armed with raw charisma and just a few jokes scribbled on a napkin, he delivered a 5-minute set that got more laughs than he expected and planted a seed he couldn't ignore. That single performance led to more open mics, then small weekend shows. His early material was shaped by real life, jobs, relationships, frustrations. But it was his timing and that unmistakable delivery that audiences remembered. By the end of the year, he quit cleaning carpets entirely. He wasn't a comedian yet by career, but by heart he was already hooked. One mic, one moment, and everything shifted. The Apollo audition that changed everything, even though he bombed first. In 1993, Steve Harvey finally got his shot at the legendary Apollo Theater in Harlem. But his first time on that stage was far from legendary. He bombed. The famously tough Apollo crowd, known for booing acts offstage within seconds, wasn't feeling his material, and the moment crushed him. But instead of quitting, Steve studied the crowd, reworked his timing, and sharpened his delivery. Weeks later, he returned with better jokes, more confidence, and a deeper understanding of what made audiences tick. That second shot? He killed. The crowd roared, and it caught the attention of producers looking for a fresh host for its showtime at the Apollo. He wasn't just a comedian anymore. He was the guy who could work a live audience and keep the energy up without breaking a sweat. That breakout moment on the Apollo stage turned Steve into a name to watch. Years later, he'd say failing the first time was the best thing that ever happened to him. It taught him humility, then hustle. How Steve Harvey became the face of Showtime at the Apollo in the 90s. After redeeming himself on the Apollo stage, Steve Harvey's chemistry with live audiences caught fire. In 1993, he was officially tapped to host its Showtime at the Apollo, stepping into a role once held by legends like Sinbad and Mark Curry. But Steve brought something different: grit, southern charm, and the confidence of a man who had survived real-life hecklers long before Harlem's crowd. His quick wit and effortless crowd work became the heartbeat of the show. When amateur acts got booed, he lightened the mood. When talent shined, he hyped them like a proud uncle. Viewers tuned in just to see how Steve would react. His presence helped revive the show's popularity in the mid-90s, especially among younger audiences. He held the position until 2000, becoming the longest-running host of the series. The Apollo didn't just boost his career, it gave him the platform to evolve. Hosting taught him rhythm, timing, and poise, setting the stage for his empire of talk shows, game shows, and comedy tours to come. The joke that got him banned from a church, and how it became a career breakthrough. In the mid-90s, during a stand-up set at a church-hosted fundraiser, Steve Harvey delivered a joke that crossed an invisible line, at least for the church elders. He made a hilarious, slightly off-color remark about church ushers and the collection plate that had the crowd in stitches. But the leadership didn't find it so funny. He was politely told never to return. Most comics might have been discouraged, but Steve saw the moment as a validation. If even a joke that got him banned could generate that kind of laughter, he was doing something right. That forbidden bit eventually made its way into his first Kings of Comedy tour set, and the audience response was electric. It also taught him a key lesson. His edge was his superpower, but knowing how to balance it made him unstoppable. Ironically, the same church later invited him back once he became famous. He declined with a smile. The joke that got him banned became the bit that launched him bigger than he'd ever imagined. Why his first marriage crumbled during his rise to fame. Steve Harvey's first marriage to Marcia Harvey unraveled quietly behind the scenes as his career began to take off in the early 1990s. Married since 1981, they shared 3 children, but fame came with a cost. Steve was on the road constantly, chasing comedy gigs and building momentum after years of struggle. The financial strain from his early career, combined with long absences and growing distance, took a toll. He admitted in interviews that he wasn't fully present as a husband or father during that time, and that regret lingers. The split became official in 1994, just as he was gaining national traction, headlining shows, appearing on TV, and hosting at the Apollo. Steve has since acknowledged the pain it caused and how the divorce shaped his understanding of relationships and accountability. Years later, he would say his ambition blinded him to the emotional needs at home. It was a harsh lesson. Chasing success is thrilling, but it can quietly unravel everything you thought was secure. Behind the scenes of The Steve Harvey Show and what went down off-camera. The Steve Harvey Show, which ran from 1996 to 2002 on the WB, became more than just a sitcom. It was a launching pad for several careers and a family behind the scenes. Set in an inner-city Chicago high school, the show starred Steve as music teacher Steve Hightower. But off-camera, the real magic was the bond between the cast. Cedric the Entertainer, who played gym teacher Cedric Jackie Robinson, quickly became Steve's comedy brother. Their improvised banter often made it into final cuts, with some scenes so funny the crew had to reshoot due to laughter. But it wasn't all laughs. Steve often clashed with writers over punchlines he felt didn't fit his voice, insisting on authenticity over formula. He also pushed for black excellence in the script and character arcs, fighting for nuance in a network that often played it safe. The show ended after 6 seasons, but its cultural impact endured. It proved Steve could carry scripted television and lead with integrity while doing it. He hosted Miss Universe and crowned the wrong winner live on TV. On December 20th, 2015, during the live broadcast of the Miss Universe pageant in Las Vegas, Steve Harvey made a mistake that instantly became global news. While announcing the winner, he mistakenly named Miss Colombia, Ariadna Gutierrez, as the new Miss Universe. Moments later, after she'd already been crowned and celebrated, Steve returned to the stage with visible discomfort and admitted his error. The real winner was Miss Philippines, Pia Wurtzbach. The confusion stunned the audience and left social media in meltdown. What most people don't know is that the cue card clearly listed the winner, but in a layout that was visually confusing. Steve took full responsibility, owning the mistake publicly and even poking fun at himself on later broadcasts. Ironically, the error didn't end his hosting career, it amplified it. He returned to host Miss Universe multiple times afterward and leaned into the moment with humility and humor. It was a televised blunder, sure, but one that showed grace under pressure and the power of honesty. Steve Harvey's brutal letter to his staff, "Don't talk to me," explained. In 2017, a leaked internal memo from Steve Harvey's talk show staff went viral, and not in a good way. The memo, written by Steve himself, bluntly instructed employees not to approach him or pop into his dressing room uninvited. It read, in part, "Do not open my dressing room door. Do not wait in the hallway to speak to me. If you open my door, expect to be removed." Many viewed it as harsh, even egotistical. But Steve later clarified the context during his first season of filming The Steve Harvey Show in Chicago. He felt constantly overwhelmed by people interrupting his limited downtime between tapings. He said he wrote the memo in frustration, hoping for boundaries, not backlash. While the letter's tone was sharp, Steve stood by the message, admitting only that he should have handled it differently. Behind the scenes, it sparked a broader conversation in the industry about personal space and mental exhaustion. Even entertainers, it turns out, need quiet moments to breathe. How Steve lost a $30 million deal and what he did the next morning. In 2019, Steve Harvey was blindsided when NBC abruptly canceled his daytime talk show, Steve, despite strong ratings and loyal viewership. The cancellation meant losing an estimated $30 million contract. The show had moved from Chicago to Los Angeles, rebranded with sleek production under IMG and Endeavor Content, but a behind-the-scenes dispute over creative control led to tension with NBC. Ultimately, the network gave The Kelly Clarkson Show his time slot. Steve found out, just like everyone else, through the media. But what he did the next morning says everything about him. He suited up, went to work like nothing happened, and filmed episodes through the end of his contract. He later said, "Sometimes God closes a door so you can walk through one you didn't even know was open." Within months, he launched Steve on Watch through Facebook Watch, reaching millions online. Losing the show was a blow, but Harvey flipped it into an opportunity, proving once again that resilience isn't just a buzzword, it's his brand. Steve Harvey's advice to black youth and why it sparked controversy. Steve Harvey has long used his platform to mentor and motivate, especially within the black community. But in 2021, during an episode of his Facebook Watch series, Steve on Watch, a clip of him advising young black men to stop blaming the system and instead outwork it sparked heated debate. His message, rooted in personal experience, emphasized discipline, faith, and relentless hustle, principles that helped him escape poverty. But critics argued that it oversimplified systemic racism and ignored structural barriers that many still face. Supporters praised his tough love approach, saying it was refreshing to hear real-world advice without sugarcoating. Steve clarified his intent shortly after, saying, "I'm not saying the system isn't real, I'm saying don't let it define your future." The moment highlighted the tightrope public figures walk when speaking to youth, especially on topics as charged as race and opportunity. Whether loved or criticized, Harvey's words ignited necessary conversations. And that, in his view, was the whole point. to challenge, not just to comfort. When his daughter Lori became more famous than him for a month. In early 2021, Steve Harvey found himself in unfamiliar territory. He wasn't the Harvey everyone was talking about. That spotlight belonged to his stepdaughter, Lori Harvey, who had just gone Instagram official with actor Michael B. Jordan. The internet exploded. Suddenly, Lori was everywhere, on red carpets, fashion campaigns, and trending across social media as fans dubbed them the hottest couple in Hollywood. For weeks, interviews with Steve shifted focus from his own career to questions about Lori's love life. While Steve joked on his show about keeping a loaded gun and a shovel ready for boyfriends, he actually admired Michael's respect and character. Still, Steve admitted it was surreal watching someone in his own house dominate headlines. Lori had already built her name as a model and entrepreneur, but this moment cemented her celebrity status and momentarily eclipsed her famous father. Steve handled it with trademark humor, telling one outlet, "She's trending and I'm trying to trend for my suits." It was a passing moment, but a memorable one. He nearly quit TV after a breakdown, but this one call changed his mind. Behind the polished smile and booming laugh, Steve Harvey faced a private reckoning in 2017. After juggling multiple shows, Family Feud, his talk show, radio commitments, and business ventures, he hit a wall. Overwhelmed, exhausted, and emotionally drained, he seriously considered walking away from television altogether. Few knew he'd reached a breaking point. He confided in close friends that the pressure of constantly performing, being on for millions, and balancing personal struggles had become unsustainable. Then came a call from Bishop T.D. Jakes, the influential pastor and motivational speaker. Steve recounted that Jakes didn't offer pity, he offered perspective. "You weren't created for TV. You were created to serve your gift," Jakes told him. That sentence snapped something back into place. Steve realized it wasn't about being famous. It was about using his platform with purpose. The next morning, he returned to work with renewed clarity. He didn't quit. Instead, he restructured his schedule, prioritized mental wellness, and reconnected with why he started in the first place. Purpose, not pressure, became his driver. Steve's private meeting with Donald Trump. What really happened inside that room? On January 13, 2017, Steve Harvey walked into Trump Tower in New York City for a private sit-down with President-elect Donald Trump that instantly became one of the most talked-about moments of his career. The meeting wasn't a casual photo op. It was framed as a conversation about housing and inner-city issues, Harvey hoping to advocate for solutions rooted in community empowerment and access to opportunity. He spoke with Trump and was connected with incoming HUD Secretary Ben Carson to discuss ideas like repurposing federal resources for education and mentorship programs in underserved neighborhoods. But what happened inside that room wasn't widely documented, beyond the fact that there was mutual respect exchanged and talk of tangible plans. Harvey later said he walked away feeling the meeting could spark something positive, stressing his intent was constructive, not political maneuvering. Outside, reactions were mixed. Many praised his willingness to engage with leadership at the highest level, but others criticized him for appearing to cozy up to a controversial figure. Harvey himself later expressed regret for how the event was perceived and acknowledged he might have handled the public response better. That meeting became less about policy and more about how public figures navigate influence, perception, and purpose in the spotlight. The day a guest called him a sellout and what Steve said back on live TV. During a 2019 taping of Steve, Harvey's daytime talk show, an audience member who was also a guest participating in a discussion on race and success unexpectedly referred to him as a sellout. The moment wasn't scripted, and you could see the shift in Steve's expression. The accusation stemmed from his earlier meeting with Donald Trump and what some perceived as Steve becoming too Hollywood or distancing himself from the everyday struggles of the Black community. But Steve didn't flinch. Instead, he calmly responded, "Don't confuse elevation with separation." He explained that success hadn't changed his values, only his platform, and that he still used it to open doors for others. He mentioned his mentoring camps for young Black men and his consistent financial support of historically black colleges. The crowd applauded. The guest eventually apologized, but Steve's poised clapback turned the tension into a teachable moment. It reminded viewers that staying connected to your roots isn't about where you sit, it's about who you serve when you rise. Why he believes his faith, not fame, kept him alive during 2005. 2005 wasn't just another year, it was the year everything nearly collapsed. Behind the laughs, suits, and booming voice was a man teetering on the edge. That year, he was in the middle of an intense legal battle with his former management team, a lawsuit that drained him emotionally and financially. At the same time, his second marriage had ended, leaving him spiritually broken. He's admitted that the pressure pushed him into a deep depression. What kept him going wasn't the fame, the money, or the fans, it was prayer. Every morning he'd wake up, fall to his knees, and talk to God asking for direction, not applause. He credits daily devotionals and gospel music for helping him reset. In fact, he often says that year forced him to stop chasing approval and start seeking alignment. That mindset shift laid the foundation for his future success. It wasn't TV that saved him, it was faith. And he's never stopped reminding people where his true strength came from. Steve Harvey's real thoughts on cancel culture and why he's not afraid. Steve Harvey has never been one to dodge tough conversations, and when it comes to cancel culture, he's made his stance loud and clear. In multiple interviews, especially around 2021 and 2022, he openly questioned whether comedy could even survive in today's climate. He argued that true comedians walk a tightrope. They push buttons, expose truths, and often say what others are thinking but too scared to voice. But Steve didn't stop there. He acknowledged that while accountability matters, so does context. He's not afraid of being canceled because he's already survived worse: homelessness, heartbreak, and public embarrassment. If you're scared to say anything, then what kind of show do you have? He once asked during an interview with E.T. His solution? Don't be reckless, but don't let fear erase your voice. As of 2025, he still stands firm, balancing sharp commentary with emotional intelligence. To him, cancel culture isn't a threat, it's a test of conviction, and his mic is still very much on. He was told too country for radio, then built a syndicated empire. When Steve Harvey first stepped into radio, industry executives told him he was too country, too raw, and didn't sound polished enough for major markets. That feedback might have broken someone else, but not him. In 2000, he launched the Steve Harvey Morning Show, originally in Los Angeles, with a signature blend of comedy, storytelling, gospel wisdom, and straight talk. Early critics doubted his appeal outside Southern audiences, but he doubled down on authenticity. By 2005, the show went national, and by 2009, it had become a syndication powerhouse, eventually reaching over 70 markets and more than 6 million weekly listeners. What made it special wasn't just the humor, it was the unexpected mix of prayer, relationship advice, and unfiltered commentary. He created a lane no one else was in. As of 2025, it's still one of the most influential urban radio programs in the country. He turned that too country label into a billion-dollar voice. Sometimes the very thing they reject you for is what makes you unstoppable. The real reason he moved to Atlanta and left LA behind. Steve Harvey's move from Los Angeles to Atlanta wasn't just about real estate or lifestyle. It was strategic, spiritual, and personal. Around 2011, after years of success in stand-up, TV, and radio, he quietly shifted his base to Atlanta, where his radio show began broadcasting full-time. While many stars chased the Hollywood limelight, Steve wanted a city that aligned with his values. Atlanta offered space to build, literally and figuratively. He established Harvey Global Headquarters there and expanded his mentoring programs, especially for young black men, through his Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation. He often said LA felt like a grind for fame, while Atlanta felt like a mission. He also cited fewer distractions and a stronger connection to faith and family. The move gave him breathing room to create, manage his empire, and live without the constant glare of paparazzi. By 2025, he's still based there, proof that sometimes the best career move isn't climbing higher, but planting deeper where your purpose thrives. He once bombed so bad on stage, even the mic cut off. Early in his stand-up career, long before he became a household name, Steve Harvey experienced a moment so crushing it still makes him laugh and cringe. During a local comedy night in Cleveland, he bombed so spectacularly that the audience started booing before he even finished his second joke. But the real punchline? Right as he tried to pivot and recover, the microphone actually cut out. Some thought it was a technical glitch. Steve's pretty sure the club manager just pulled the plug. It was that bad. Instead of storming off, he took a breath, smiled, and shouted his punchline without amplification, earning a few reluctant chuckles. Afterward, he sat alone in his car and cried. But he didn't quit. That bomb taught him two things: never blame the crowd, and always come prepared with material that reflects your voice, not what you think they want to hear. By 2025, he still calls that moment one of the most important flops of his life and the spark that sharpened his grit. His business empire and how he quietly made millions. Beyond the laughs and stage lights, Steve Harvey has quietly built a business empire that many fans don't even know exists. While his face is tied to TV and radio, his real wealth comes from what's behind the curtain: licensing deals, production companies, and global brand partnerships. In 2017, he launched Steve Harvey Global, SHG, a media and brand development firm that now controls his intellectual property, oversees his international Family Feud franchises, and produces original content. SHG's reach extends beyond entertainment. It includes fashion, wellness products, and even educational platforms. He also owns the rights to Family Feud in Africa, where the show airs in South Africa and Ghana, with Harvey himself hosting. Add in investments in tech and real estate, and it's clear this isn't just a celebrity gig, it's a full-fledged business portfolio. As of 2025, Forbes estimated his net worth was comfortably exceeding $200 million. Turns out, while the world watched him tell jokes, he was quietly writing one of the smartest business playbooks in entertainment. What Steve Harvey told his son after a tabloid scandal. When a tabloid scandal falsely accused one of Steve Harvey's sons of being involved in a scandal back in 2020, it hit hard. Not because it was true, but because it painted the family in a damaging light. The story, which was quickly debunked, involved claims of reckless behavior and substance abuse. Steve didn't go to social media or hold a press conference. Instead, he sat his son down privately and said, "Your name matters, but how you carry it matters more." He reminded him that the Harvey name had been built through grit, sacrifice, and prayer, not clickbait. Rather than react publicly, Steve focused on keeping his son grounded and off the defensive. He later shared in an interview that fame often comes with friendly fire, and sometimes family becomes collateral damage. His message wasn't about image, but integrity. By 2025, none of the claims stuck, but the lesson did. In Steve's house, the truth isn't shouted, it's lived. And that, he says, is how you outlast rumors. Steve's marriage to Marjorie and the rumors that never went away. Steve Harvey's marriage to Margie Elaine Harvey, which began in 2007, has been a cornerstone of his personal transformation, but it hasn't come without whispers. Over the years, the couple has faced persistent rumors, from claims of infidelity to tabloid-fueled divorce speculation. In 2023, false reports went viral suggesting Marjorie had cheated and was demanding half his fortune. Steve addressed the chatter head-on during a speaking event in Atlanta, joking, "She was with me when I was broke. Now y'all mad because she's still here while I'm ballin'?" The crowd laughed, but his message was serious. He credited Marjorie with stabilizing his life, encouraging his business moves, and bringing a spiritual foundation to their blended family. Despite the noise, the two have remained united, often posting loving messages and family photos online. As of December 2025, they're still going strong. For Steve, the real story isn't in the headlines, it's in the daily loyalty, prayer, and laughter they share off-camera, where no rumor can rewrite their truth. Why Family Feud ratings spiked right after he took over in 2010. When Steve Harvey took over as host of Family Feud in 2010, few could have predicted just how explosive the ratings would become. The show had cycled through several hosts and was on the verge of fading into TV obscurity. But Steve flipped the format on its head, not by changing the rules, but by changing the energy. He brought unscripted reactions, animated expressions, and his signature pauses that built hilarious suspense. His ability to roast silly answers while still keeping things light made every episode feel like stand-up meets game night. Viewership soared within months, especially among younger audiences and Black households, demographics the show hadn't fully captured before. By 2015, Family Feud had become the top-rated syndicated game show in America, surpassing even Jeopardy at times. As of 2025, Harvey remains the most successful host in the show's history. Turns out what the show needed wasn't new questions, it needed a host who could make the answers unforgettable. Steve did just that, and then some. He was accused of stealing jokes, and the comedian who fought back. In the early 2000s, Steve Harvey found himself in the middle of a controversy that comedians dread – joke theft. The accusation came from fellow comic Mark Curry, best known as Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, who claimed Steve used some of his material during a performance on BET's Comic View. Curry detailed the incident years later in interviews, saying he was shocked to hear punchlines he'd written coming from another comic with a bigger platform. While Steve never publicly addressed Curry's specific claim in detail, he's always maintained that his comedy comes from personal experiences, his family, his upbringing, and his faith. Still, the accusation sparked debate in the comedy world about originality, ownership, and respect among Black comedians. Some defended Steve, citing overlapping themes in stand-up, while others sided with Curry's frustration. As of 2025, the two haven't collaborated or publicly reconciled, though the issue faded from headlines. It served as a reminder, in comedy, your voice is your currency, and your reputation can be just as fragile. Steve Harvey freezes when contestant's husband walks out with another woman on stage. There was a rare Family Feud moment that left everyone in the studio still talking years later, not because of stage drama, but due to a contestant's brutally honest answer that stunned both host and crowd. During a 2024-2025 taping, Steve asked one family to name a reason a woman might not want her husband on her team. After a few playful guesses, one contestant blurted out that her husband embarrassed her because of the way he looked. The room fell silent. Steve turned away, letting the awkward tension hang. Her husband, visibly taken aback, walked off the stage for a few minutes before returning after the host regained control of the game. The audience burst into laughter, relief, and applause at the absurdity of the moment. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't planned, and it is exactly the kind of unexpected human moment that made the show a pop culture staple under his watch. His reaction when a contestant said, "Your mustache is fake," on air. For years, one of the most talked about aspects of his on-screen persona hasn't been his jokes, his ties, or even Family Feud's iconic survey answers. It's his mustache. Fans have joked for decades that his signature facial hair looks so perfect it must be fake. And online memes about replica mustaches and costume props have circulated widely. In 2021, photos shared by fans pointed out the contrast between promotional images and candid shots, sparking playful debate over whether he wore a fake mustache on Family Feud or simply groomed a real one to perfection. He never made a formal announcement either way, but his public appearances and interviews show it's grown from real hair, trimmed and styled for camera. Rather than bristle, he leans into the humor, often cracking a smile when fans call it too perfect. That easygoing response reveals why audiences love him. He doesn't take himself so seriously that he can't laugh at a joke about his own look. Steve Harvey's mentor moment with a homeless teen that went viral. One of the most heartwarming sides of his success isn't the trophies or TV ratings. It's the moments he spent pouring into young men whose lives echo his own early struggles. As someone who once slept in his car and faced real hardship, he's long championed mentorship, especially for teens without male role models, through the Steve Harvey Mentoring Program for young men. In a video that spread widely online, a 16-year-old named Terry stood before him at an event, eyes wide with courage and hope, asked Steve to be a mentor. Rather than brush it off as a cute clip, he embraced the moment with seriousness, telling him he saw potential, not problems, and inviting him into the foundation's mentorship circle. That genuine response stirred viewers because it showed the man behind the comedian, someone who remembers what it's like to feel lost and takes the time to call a young person worthy of belief. It's why clips from mentoring events continue to resonate, reminding millions that sometimes encouragement matters more than applause. How he went from $50 in his pocket to owning a clothing line. Before the designer suits and glossy photo shoots, he once walked into a comedy club with only $50 in his pocket, the first real money he ever made from stand-up after years of scraping by doing odd jobs. That modest victory was more than cash. It ignited a vision that comedy could be just the beginning. As his TV and radio success grew, he became known for his impeccable old-school style of tailored suits and bold ties, a look that became part of his personal brand. Fans started asking where they could buy attire like this. And in 2017, he turned that demand into reality with H by Steve Harvey, a menswear collection featuring timeless pieces like silk ties and classic tailoring designed with his own eye for elegance and confidence. It wasn't a spontaneous celebrity license. It was the result of decades building a reputation for style and substance. From that first $50 punchline to a recognizable fashion line, his journey shows how authenticity can turn small beginnings into a wide-reaching brand recognized across America. Steve Harvey's final stand-up show and why he walked away from comedy. In August 2012, after more than 27 years on the road as a stand-up comedian, he chose to bring that chapter to a close with a final performance at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, a 2-hour show broadcast live on pay-per-view that celebrated a career forged in grit and laughter. That decision wasn't about fading away, but about pivoting forward. He'd been touring since the mid-'80s, headlining stages, selling out theaters, and earning his place among the original kings of comedy alongside legends like D.L. Hughley, Cedric the Entertainer, and Bernie Mac. By 2012, his focus had shifted toward national TV and radio success, hosting Family Feud, building a syndication empire, and expanding his media footprint meant weekends on the road were no longer sustainable. In interviews years later, he noted that changing comedy norms and the rise of cancel culture made the road less appealing, and balancing family with a packed schedule pushed him to walk away from stand-up. Ending that era allowed him to grow into the multi-platform entertainer he is today. His emotional speech about failure that left the whole studio in tears. One thing Steve has never shied away from is talking about failure, not as a punchline, but as a truth we all share. In multiple speeches and motivational clips that have gone viral, he said the mistakes that felt like the end were really the start of something better, and audiences have openly cried while listening to him lay it out. He's shared that he pitched more than 200 television show ideas over 3 decades before only a handful ever got picked up, reminding people that hard losses are just data you haven't learned from yet. In viral videos, you can see people in the crowd wipe tears as he talks about being homeless, bombed on stage, and fired, only to keep going with faith in his corner. That raw honesty about setbacks isn't a gimmick, it's the core of his message, turning pain into purpose in a way that resonates far beyond comedy stages. Steve Harvey leaves the stage in tears after a guest says this one sentence. One of the most powerful things he's ever done on camera came not from a joke or a game show punchline, but from sheer human connection. On episodes of both Family Feud and his talk show, there have been moments when a contestant or guest shared a heartfelt story, like a family fulfilling a dying loved one's wish or someone recounting the sacrifices made to support their children, and he visibly struggled to hold back tears as they spoke. In one viral clip, he stopped the show after a guest revealed a tragic hardship, his voice trembling and eyes glistening before the studio went silent with empathy. In another, a birthday surprise from old friends who'd helped him early in his career left him overwhelmed with gratitude. These weren't scripted scenes, but genuine reactions from a man who came from nothing and understands what it feels like to be seen, heard, and valued in a moment of truth. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon